It's the South Carolina Good Life Podcast with your host, SC Realtors CEO Nick Kremydas.
Thank you for joining us for the very first episode of the Good Life Podcast. I'm Nick Kremydas, CEO of the South Carolina Association of Realtors, and I am so pleased to have a special guest with us today, Ben Johnson from the South Carolina Department of Commerce. Ben, good morning. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me today.
Ben, I know you've got some interesting information to share with our realtors and folks across South Carolina, but why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do at Commerce?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the Director of Research at the Department of Commerce, and the mission of Commerce is to raise the quality of life of South Carolinians through economic development. And we do that by working to attract jobs in industry that are high paying, have benefits, and are really something that you can build a career out of. And so my role in that function is when companies need information about our state, our tax base, our education systems, any kind of question that they're going to have, that comes to my department. And so we work really hard to make sure that our sales team is well prepared to handle any kind of inquiry they're going to get.
Well, our realtor members know that jobs equals homes, right? And economic development is a fundamental part of not only improving the quality of life in South Carolina, but creating a future South Carolina that's going to continue to thrive, continue to grow, and provide opportunities for all our citizens. So why don't you jump right into your presentation today?
Sure. Thank you so much. So I thought it would be helpful to kind of go through 2020. As we all know, it was a very interesting year last year. And so I thought it would be good to just kind of talk about that for a second, see how things went, and where we looks like we're going to head from here.
That sounds great. We look forward to it.
Since 2011, the Department of Commerce has had incredible momentum in South Carolina. We've recruited over 1,140 economic development projects representing $43 billion in capital investment and 153,000 new jobs. And so that's new opportunities for families in South Carolina to really change their life. And so we're very, very proud of that. We're working with industries from cutting edge aircraft to premium automobiles, advanced medical devices, and agribusiness. And South Carolina provides some of the most complex products in the world. As you know, though, 2020 was kind of uncharted territory for everybody this year. The world faced an economic crisis unlike any other in our lifetime. But fortunately, our state was in a better position for recovery than many others because of our sustained success with the diversified economy. So our economy, as you know, includes manufacturing, agribusiness, tourists, office operations, warehousing and distribution, life sciences, and much, much more. And because of that, we certainly had to bob and weave in 2020, but we really came out okay. Last year, Commerce was given the responsibility for permitting gatherings of large people. We were assisting existing industry in best practices for reopening once it became safe to do so, to really try and get South Carolinians back to work. Get our factories producing goods again, get as many services as open as possible in a safe manner for their workforce and for their customers. We tried to help companies pivot, and if that was going to be something, a number of our distillers started making hand sanitizer. A number of folks that would make components for automobiles started making PPE. And we were actually quite successful with that. In fact, according to the Bureau of Economic Advisors for South Carolina, and this is the group that advises the legislature on the budget and how the budget's looking, during the first 7 months of the fiscal year, which starts in July 1st, South Carolina has actually brought in more revenue than in any 7 months previous. So that means that we're doing better, from July until now for this year than we ever have before, which I think really talks about how quickly we were able to get back to work, and how that diversified economic base has providing a stable base for our state budget, which then goes to fund our schools and services and other government functions.
We certainly saw that in the real estate industry as we closed the year with some of the highest number of sales that we've ever recorded, and it part of that is the fact that South Carolina is a great place to be, and I think folks found that it's a great place to be during a pandemic, and do their business here, and the numbers were very fortunate compared to numbers we saw in other states.
I think you're absolutely right about that. Relocating. So South Carolina, depending on which study you saw, South Carolina had the second highest percentage of inbound migration of other states that experienced more than 250 moves. And so this was a study put out by United Van Lines. So of course, there are a number of different data sets discussing this, but we're in the top 5 of the United Van Lines study, going through different moves, of the U.S. Postal Service change of address forms during the pandemic, and of LinkedIn workers that updated their location. Greenville, South Carolina was actually listed by Money Magazine as one of the best cities for working remotely. So the pandemic for South Carolina really saw a major increase in our population, which I think, again, demonstrates how it is a great place to live and work.
Absolutely. In real estate, we know to close a deal, you've got to get that home buyer in the house. You've got to get that, commercial tenant to come check out the property and do the walkthrough. When you're recruiting business, and if I'm skipping ahead here, please stop me. But how did you close the deal last year with COVID and travel restrictions? And I know you deal with a lot of international companies. How did y'all have the success you had, even with COVID?
Well, it was a challenging year, no doubt. Most companies and then state government as well, have travel restrictions, and so we're not going to any non-essential meetings. Fortunately, prospect visits, if they can be held in a socially distanced manner, are considered essential. But from May until June or July, there really weren't any in-person meetings. And so to kind of combat that, we really worked to beef up the Locate SC website. This lists a number of buildings and sites that are available for prospects in the state. We also put out a grant program and made it available to our counties to provide dollars for drone marketing videos, again, of their buildings and sites. And so, during the course of the last, since last March, we've created and uploaded 160 drone videos to really showcase our sites as best we can to visitors who are unable to travel, and that really helped us get on the short list of a lot of companies.
That's awesome. I know our members have been invested in virtual tour technology for a long time, and that really took off, obviously, with COVID and some of the restrictions that were in place. But you can have a very good virtual experience and help to close the deal, so to speak.
I absolutely think it helps to get your foot in the door. But then also, like you said, you once you make that first cut, that's great. But to close the deal, I think you really have to get people on the ground. And so, fortunately, in the second half of the year, we were really able to do that. And so, once we started having more in-person site visits, we actually had a very successful year last year. We won over 126 economic development projects, $4 billion in investment. And this really was all over the state. This includes projects like Mark Anthony Brewing. They're the manufacturers of White Claw. They invested $400 million in Richland County, and that was one of those quick projects where a lot of times the life cycle of a project is anywhere from 9 to 18 months from start to close. This one was more like 4. I think shows how resourceful we were able to be to do as much with the on the ground time we had with the company and really put our best foot forward. But in addition to we had lots of food projects this year. We also had an agricultural technology campus announced in Hampton County, and so that's going to be a joint venture that's going to provide food production, processing, and packaging. So running the whole gambit in one of our rural counties. It's expected to create up to 1,500 jobs and over $265 million in investment in Hampton. Very proud of that. We also had some major distribution announcements. Of course, e-commerce certainly hit a new stride this year. I think most of us had Amazon packages arriving at our doorstep every other day. We landed a major Walmart distribution facility down in Dorchester County. I want to take advantage of the port and then also be able to distribute their goods using inland ports and our significant interstate infrastructure that really does make South Carolina great for distribution. Also had some office sector announcements. DC Blocks invested $200 million in a data center in Greenville County. So really we're able to hit multiple industries in basically every part of the state this year, and very proud of that.
Well, that's awesome. That's going to translate into a lot of long-term economic stability and success for our state. The more we diversify, obviously, the better off we are. When you're recruiting or when you're meeting with, let's say, an international investor or even someone from outside of South Carolina, what are some of the questions? What are some of the first questions they ask when they're looking at our state?
Oh boy, it definitely runs all sorts of things, but the major things that are important are workforce availability. If you can have a site, so real estate. None of this is possible if there's not a site. And so you have to have a place to put the company. But then that site has to have available workforce, for the jobs that they're looking for. And so it's really important to, work with our technical school system, as well as universities and K through 12 to get our workforce where it needs to be for 21st century jobs. Once we've demonstrated that we've got a site that's going to work, that's got utilities that are going to be functional, and that we've got ample folks for that company can employ, that really is the major key.
When a company does come here and do a site visit, they meet some of the local citizens and other business leaders. What are some of the impressions that they leave with?
The quality of life in South Carolina really is phenomenal. We've got generally exceptional weather year round. I mean, I know some of us might say it gets a touch hot here in the summer, but compared to other locations, it's not. It's manageable. And so the stable weather is good. Our diverse transportation network is extremely helpful. Having multiple interstates, having access to the port, access to the coast, to the mountains, and then just the quality of life here. There's so much recreational activities that folks can take a part in. Our communities are kind and welcoming for international prospects as well as other United States prospects, and so we really do just have an open door of hospitality that people find extremely welcoming.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. I've heard Governor McMaster say many times that it's the people that kind of close the deal when it comes to doing business in our state. Once these prospects see our communities, the inclusiveness of our state, that they fall in love, and it's as much emotional as it is, business deal. So that's good to hear. And as realtors, we're very concerned about the quality of life in our state, and it's not just about real estate, right? It's about business climate. It's about our preserving our natural resources and our parks and open spaces, healthcare, our schools. I mean, it's a multi-pronged approach that creates a thriving and growing community that has a good, strong future.
Absolutely. We've got to have a location where the decision makers want to live. If they can't picture, their family, their kids living in a location, they're not as likely to go there. And so you're absolutely right. Having that strong education, strong healthcare, and high quality of life is so important.
What other information do you have for us today?
Another main part of South Carolina's economy is our exports. The port is extremely important to our ability to do business. And this year, we didn't break a record this year, but we got close with $30 billion in exports. We export to 195 markets all over the world. We're the largest exporter of passenger vehicles, of tires, and as of this year, of ball bearings. So ball bearings maybe not as sexy as passenger vehicles, but it's good to be number one.
Let's talk cars for a minute, because I'm a car enthusiast, and I'm so proud of the fact that we build BMWs, Mercedes, Volvos here in South Carolina, not to mention all the tire manufacturing. I brag to my colleagues around the country how we were the leading exporter in value of vehicles, thanks to BMW again last year. Just how big of an impact does BMW have in recruiting other businesses here and new ones like Volvo and the Sprinter van in Charleston? What does that do? I mean, that's got to pump you guys up and give you a lot of ammunition going into these meetings with other executives.
Absolutely. So industries generally like to cluster around each other, whether it's if you ever noticed on a busy intersection that you're going to have two banks and two gas stations, or CVS and Walgreens right apart from each other. It's the same thing when it comes to manufacturing. If we can demonstrate that we've got available workforce to handle automotive manufacturing, that's enough to support BMW, that's enough to support Volvo, that's enough to support Mercedes. As long as we can show that we've got that pipeline of workforce coming out of our educational system, we can bring in someone else. Same with tire manufacturing. We've got Michelin, Continental, Bridgestone, GT. They like to know that others have been successful here, and that's a great market for those, and certainly it helps us to recruit. Further, when it comes to the automotive OEMs, they bring a lot of their suppliers. And so a number of BMW suppliers have to locate within an hour of the BMW plant. As a result, we've got Drexel-Meyer, we've got ZF, Magna. So a number of suppliers to BMW within an hour, which is phenomenal for economic development here. And we're hoping to recruit more suppliers to Volvo and same with Mercedes.
That's awesome. I was lucky enough to be at the grand opening or the grand opening ceremony for the BMW plant many years ago, and what a sense of pride it is to know that X5s, their SUV model, it's only made there at that plant, and it is shipped all around the world, knowing that it's made with pride in South Carolina, and it's one of the top rated vehicles. From a safety standpoint, from a reliability standpoint, and certainly they look really cool. Especially I kind of lean toward the M versions of those cars. But
I'm with you completely. I do feel like it's something we take for granted. In South Carolina, you see an X5 driving down the street, like, oh, that's cool. But a couple years back, I was down in South America visiting my in-laws and their family, and you see an X5. Driving down the streets in Bogota, Colombia, I'm like, oh, that was made in Greer. That's pretty cool.
It really is. Yesterday or Monday, I was traveling down to Charleston for a lunch meeting, and passed by the port, and you see literal acres of vehicles waiting to be put on the boats and shipped to customers all over the world. And it is, when you are part of the business community in South Carolina, that is a tremendous source of pride for our state.
Certainly, and coming up, every new 787 that's being produced is coming from South Carolina. Mercedes is working on a number of the custom Amazon vans. So for those packages that keep coming to my doorstep, that delivery system's going to be here in South Carolina. We really do have far-reaching impacts all over the world.
I would love to own one of those Mercedes kind of off-road Sprinter vans that are like a small motorhome. Have you seen those?
Yes, sir. They're so pretty.
You could store all your mountain bikes and outdoor gear and have a full camping experience. And it's small. It's not like a huge RV.
And in the world of telecommuting, I feel like that could be more of a viable living space for some folks.
Just put a antenna on top and you're set.
Yes, sir.
What predictions do you have for 21? We've in real estate, we've started the year off with yet another bang. I'm going to go on record now. We'll see what kind of shelf life this has at the end of the year. But I think we're going to have an even better year than 2020, as amazing as it ended up for the real estate industry. What do you see for commerce in 21? What are you predicting?
We're excited to have another great year in 2021. I feel like, given as successful as we were and really unexpectedly successful as we were in 2020 with everything going on, now having the election behind us. So election years also are generally down years on their own, just because of the uncertainty that comes with an election. A lot of business leaders, want to know what the rules are before they make a decision. And so now that we have that, the election passed, that's one hindrance that typically slows us down. And then, of course, a global pandemic, certainly a major thing. So with what I would expect to see and hope to see is as the vaccine becomes more and more prominent, that'll really help our service industry a lot. Over the last 12 months, manufacturing employment has actually increased in South Carolina. Professional services have increased, but the leisure and hospitality sectors are down 15%, which is really devastating to a number of workers and a major part of our economy. Tourism is massive along the coast, and so they're certainly having a major impact from that. But I would expect to see a lot of recovery in that area and probably some pent-up demand. I know I certainly would love the opportunity to get on a plane and fly somewhere, anywhere, just, want to get moving again. And so I do feel like that once it's safe to do so, that we'll really have a good year in those sectors. As far as manufacturing, distribution, off the services, I would expect that, particularly in distribution, a number of us are not going to go back to the way that life was when it comes to, going to buy as many things in person. It's convenient to have your groceries delivered. And sometimes it's nice not to leave the house to go buy, Q-tips and toilet paper and all that stuff. And so I would certainly expect the distribution networks to continue to strengthen. You'll probably see a lot more localized distribution centers as companies really want to be close to their customer to provide that faster delivery time, whether it's same day or next day delivery. So I think that'll be really big for us this year. I'm expecting great things in 2021.
We've had a couple of big announcements already this year. Is there anything that isn't super secret that you can share that's coming up?
Unfortunately, no. So sorry about that. I always hate to be that guy, but we have to sign some pretty strong NDAs.
All the things that you talked about, though, we're starting to see changes in buying habits of homes. People realize very quickly that if you're working from home, you never leave work, and so that you need a space dedicated in your home to your work life, and then you need to be able to step away from that and with kids, our children, in many cases, doing either partial or full virtual learning, space has become a premium, and home design, home styles are evolving to accommodate that. And I don't know if that's going to be a permanent change, but we're starting to see many companies adopting, work from home policies. Some companies have announced that they're going all virtual, and so I think we'll continue to see some hybrid, at least in the near term, and that'll continue to adjust and impact home buying trends.
Absolutely, and I think that'll certainly have positive implications for migration patterns for us as well. Personally, I have a number of friends that have left the New York area, and some permanently, some just because they'd rather work from Charleston, South Carolina, or Columbia, South Carolina, than a cramped Brooklyn apartment. And so I think that we'll start to, but that the mid-sized cities in particular are going to benefit greatly from those new location, new trends of migration.
And those, that presents its own challenges, right? With infrastructure and traffic and schools, and those are, again, quality of life issues that we've got to stay on top of. Not necessarily your department's primary focus, but I know it comes up as it's got to come up as a concern when businesses are locating. How much time does it take to get to work, and what are the quality of the schools, and those are all issues that are in the front of my mind right now, because we are going to grow as a state regardless of these migration patterns. We're just positioned perfectly for just not only natural population growth, but also migration, and we've got to be ahead of these growth issues to make sure we maintain a good quality of life for our citizens. So before we wrap it up, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for being with us. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions so that we get to know Ben Johnson a little bit better.
Yes, sir.
I know this wasn't in the scripts, but don't worry. So what was your favorite COVID activity? When we couldn't get out and travel, like you said, what was your favorite activity to help kind of fill that void?
I ran the circuit of COVID activities. So started out when we really expected that this was going to be something that's with us for a month or two. Hit working out at home really hard. Dropped some weight. Looking great for pool season in the summer, and then realized that wasn't going to happen, and reversed course and really get into baking. So I make a mean loaf of bread, pizza dough, cinnamon rolls, all sorts of carbs.
That's awesome. I tell you, I'll share with you too. I got into kind of a fitness kick too, and working out from home, and indoor bike. I love to cycle. I love to play tennis. So one of the few sports I felt that were safe enough to play during COVID, and despite all my age-related injuries, I had a pretty good year. Ben, I want to just say thank you. Please pass along our thanks also to Secretary Hitt, and thank you for all that you and your colleagues do. Economic activity drives the real estate sector on the residential side. We know that. We appreciate it. And anything we can do in the future to partner with you to help with information on the ground about our communities. We have a lot of research. We do a lot of research, and would be more than happy to share that with you and work with you in conjunction to help continue to grow our great state and continue to move it forward. Thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. South Carolina Realtors are such an asset to our state. We really appreciate you advocating for higher quality of life in South Carolina, and y'all make a huge difference. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you for everyone for tuning in again to our inaugural episode of the Good Life podcast. I'm so thrilled to have Ben as our first guest. Look for our next episode coming up soon. In the meantime, stay safe, and stay realtor strong. Take care, everybody.
For past and future episodes, check out the Good Life podcast at goodlife.screaltors.org.